Chapter 1. The house loomed, an architectural monstrosity draped in shadows, with peeling paint and a creaking facade that seemed to sigh under the weight of its own history. I was drawn here, pulled into its suffocating embrace by a summons from my husband, an esteemed doctor whose arrogance had long since eclipsed my own desires. Rest, he insisted, is what you need. But rest was merely a prison in disguise, a gilded cage from which I could not escape. I was to stay in this room, a nursery once, filled with remnants of childlike innocence now tainted by time. The wallpaper was a sickly shade of yellow, a color that seemed to pulse and writhe under dim light, patterns swirling like the tendrils of a beast. Each day I awoke to the sight of it, its faded stains like the remnants of something grotesque, something that had once lived and now lay twisted beneath layers of neglect. My husband, John, with his placating voice and patronizing tone, assured me that the isolation was necessary for my recovery. "You're simply imagining things," he would say, his brows furrowing with concern that never quite reached his eyes. "You need to stop overthinking." But how could I stop when the wallpaper whispered secrets in the dark, when it seemed to breathe and conspire against me, its yellow hue morphing into shadows that stretched like gnarled fingers across the room? As the days blurred into one another, I found myself fixated on the wallpaper, tracing its patterns with my fingertips, as if seeking to unearth its hidden truths. There was something alive beneath the surface, something that clawed to break free. I could feel it, feel the desperate energy pulsating within the fibers. "I have to peel it away," I muttered to myself, the words tumbling like a chant. "I must set it free." But John would not hear of it. "It's just wallpaper, my dear," he would say, his voice dripping with condescension. "You mustn't concern yourself with such trivialities." Yet each word felt like a dagger, piercing deeper into my psyche, and I could feel the walls closing in on me, suffocating me with their oppressive embrace. Chapter 2. The first night I heard her, a soft rustling, a whisper of movement that sent chills skittering down my spine. I sat upright in bed, heart pounding, straining to hear over the sound of my own breath. "Is someone there?" I called, my voice trembling in the darkness. Silence answered, thick and suffocating, wrapping around me like a shroud. Days turned into weeks, and the whispering grew louder, more insistent. I began to see her, faint outlines in the corners of my vision, darting just out of reach. She was trapped, just like me, ensnared by the yellow wallpaper that held her prisoner. I felt an unholy kinship with her, an understanding that transcended the boundaries of sanity. She was my reflection, my darker self, and I longed to free her. "I must take it down," I murmured one night, the moonlight glinting off the peeling edges of the wallpaper. My fingers twitched with the need to tear and claw at the grotesque patterns, to reveal the secrets hidden beneath. I could almost hear her whispering, urging me on, her voice a siren's call echoing in the void. Desperation clawed at my mind as I began to peel away the layers. Each scrap of wallpaper that fell away was a victory, a liberation of sorts. My heart raced with the thrill of discovery, the promise of something dark lurking just beneath the surface. But as I tore, I could feel John's presence looming like a storm cloud, his disapproval suffocating me. "You're losing yourself," he would say, eyes narrowing with concern. "You must stop this madness." But madness was my only companion. Each night I sank deeper into its embrace, the wallpaper becoming my obsession. I could see her now, a figure writhing behind the yellow, her desperation mirroring my own. "Help me," she seemed to plead, her silent screams echoing in my mind. "Free me from this prison." Chapter 3. The final night arrived like a tempest, swirling with the energy of my unraveling mind. I had clawed and scraped until my fingers were raw, until the walls themselves seemed to tremble at the intensity of my determination. The yellow wallpaper was nearly gone, shredded remnants littering the floor like the fallen petals of a cursed flower. In the moonlight I could see her clearly now, her visage distorted, wild hair and sunken eyes that bore the weight of 1,000 torments. She was beautiful in her madness, a twisted reflection of my own soul. "We are one," I whispered, a sense of euphoric unity washing over me. I will set you free. With a final, frenzied effort, I tore down the last remnants of the wallpaper, the fabric ripping apart with a satisfying sound, revealing a wall marred by darkness, stains that looked like blood, like the remnants of something long dead. And in that moment, as the last vestiges of my sanity slipped away, I felt the liberation of her spirit intertwining with my own. The door burst open, and there stood John, eyes wide with horror, his face a mask of disbelief. "What have you done?" he gasped, stepping back as if I were a monster. But I was beyond his comprehension, beyond the constraints of his reality. "I've set her free," I screamed, the words pouring from my lips like a cathartic release. "We will no longer be prisoners." And with that, I felt the last shreds of my identity dissolve. Together, we danced in the moonlight, the echoes of my laughter mingling with her haunting cries. As John collapsed, eyes wide in terror, I felt a surge of triumph. "I am no longer yours," I whispered, my voice a chilling melody. "I am her, and she is me." The walls closed in one last time, the darkness swallowing us whole. In the end, there was no escape, no hope for salvation, only the suffocating embrace of the yellow wallpaper, forever binding us in a twisted union of despair.